Hey Internet, this is Justin, aka Demonic Sweaters, and let me get my camera on here. Hey, how's it going, guys and girls and non-binary people or dogs or whatever, anybody who's listening. This is Justin, and kind of an unscheduled live stream here. Yeah, so how you doing? Anyway, yeah, I was going to do this last Friday, but something came up, and I wasn't able to do it, so here I am. But so I think today what I want to talk about is UFOs, because this is a really interesting subject to me, and of course I'll be talking about music and Linux and all of that good stuff as well. But I definitely wanted to touch on the UFO topic because I've done that in the past on this podcast when it was more of a regular podcast and not a YouTube live streaming thing. So I wanted to get back on that because I think there's a couple of things. If you don't believe in UFOs right now or believe in aliens, well, no, I'll take that back. Just UFOs. If you don't believe in UFOs already, I don't know if this is what I should be wearing for this podcast. Maybe I should put on another shirt. But you will after this podcast, because you might not have heard a couple of the cases that I'm gonna bring your attention to. That to me are some of the most compelling stories pretty much out there, and it's almost like you really can't ignore these things. They're by reputable people, and if you take what they say as being correct, then it pretty much proves the existence of UFOs, 100%. There's almost no way about it. Now, what those UFOs actually are, I don't know, but I don't know. I have theories on that, but we can get into that a little bit later. But first off, what you just heard there in the intro was a song, kind of an ambient piece by me on keys and my friend Jeremy Powell on saxophone and electronics and effects and stuff. We released this album. Actually, it was released on the Test Tube net label back in 2008 or 2009, somewhere around there. And I don't even know if that net label is still around. I should dig it up. It always had a weird URL. It wasn't just like testtube.net or anything like that. So I can't recall what it is off the top of my head, but I remember it not being... I remember the URL not being TestTube and being something else. So I'll have to look for that and see if it is still online. But it was free to download. I don't know if it's still there or not. But if it's not, I should put that up on Anthill Recordings, because I think it's a really, really good album. Me and Jeremy just, we just did some improvisation. We used to improvise a lot, me and him, either on drums and sax or drums and keys, with him on keys and Ableton and me on drums, or like you just heard there, me on synth. I was playing a Casio CZ3000 there, and I don't think I was playing through any effects or anything, but Jeremy was playing his saxophone through several effects, and it came out pretty cool, I think. So how you guys doing? Anybody out there? I see 3 viewers. And, if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to shout out anytime, and I will take that topic, and run with it. But, so I have been selling a few things on eBay lately, and one of the things, eBay actually, a lot of people complain about it, but I actually love eBay. It's a great service. It's been around for a long time, and I've, made a decent amount of money on eBay over the years, and bought some really cool stuff on eBay too. However, that is not to say it isn't without problems from time to time. And one of those problems that just arose for me is USP. Well, it's not even eBay's fault. It's USPS, which, time and time again, I should learn just not to use them. But they're the easiest here in New York City because they're the closest. But they tend to break a lot of things. And what they broke this time was a crash cymbal, a 17-inch crash cymbal that was in, perfect condition. And, I don't know how they're manhandling these packages, but they managed to flip that thing inside out. It's completely insane. I had it packed, in a pretty thin box, but I've received cymbals that way plenty of times and never had an issue, and I've shipped other ones that way. I mean, people send vinyl in just this thin cardboard box, and it's usually fine. But somehow, I don't know if they drove the truck over it or what they did, but they somehow managed to turn that cymbal inside out. And so the buyer is obviously pretty mad, and he wants a refund. But I want to claim the insurance because I sent it and it was fine. So I really think USPS needs to pay for this one. And the problem with this is when you ship something through eBay, and what I've heard now after doing some research, if you sell something and it gets damaged by USPS, unless the person who receives the package takes it back to USPS themselves, and if they send it back to you, what I'm trying to say, and you try to do it, then you will get denied because it's essentially at the location where it supposedly left from. So they can't take it anymore because it had been shipped again. So I don't know. It's really weird and it's really annoying. But so what's going to happen is this buyer, the person who bought the cymbal, is going to have to take it back to USPS with the tracking number and try to file a claim. And I'm sure he's going to be super mad at me and probably leave me negative feedback, even though I didn't do anything. But, that's kind of stuff you have to deal with. So I got, there's 4 of you out there, and feel free to say hi. It's nice to know who's watching. But if you have any questions or anything, feel free to let me know. What have I been doing? Doing a lot of drum stuff, as you saw. If you've been watching my videos, I got those cool Tama Techstar electronic drum pads, which those things are just really cool. And I managed to fit them in my studio. And that's been nice. My studio is like a tiny shoebox-sized studio, and so I managed to fit those in there, and it's been cool. They have the electronic module that came with the actual pads. It's like the Tama Techstar 204, and it's pretty cool, but it's pretty limited as far as the sounds go, like what you can do. So it's it's definitely a cool unit, but what I think I'll probably do eventually is just replace it with a more modern one that I can load my own samples onto. I think there's Roland makes one that's like a 2 trigger input module, and I'll probably end up using that and get rid of the Techstar module, but still use the pads just because I want to have more options of sounds and stuff like that. But anyway, got a couple people chiming in here, and Vinny. Hey Vinny, how's it going? He says, just starting out trying to get my Linux Garage Studio up and running, so thanks for your videos in that realm. I'm going to start out with Traction 7. Okay, yeah, Traction's great. I've done a couple of tutorials on Traction, not a lot. And U-Turn says, hi from London, and hi from New York City. But, yeah, I did a few on Traction. I think it was 9. Is what I was working with. But it started out really great, actually, and I was praising it in my tutorials, but it started crashing a lot, and I started having a lot of problems with it. But partly was that due to the fact that I was running on a newer version of Ubuntu than they supposedly support. They said that they only support, I mean, this was back when I did the tutorial, 16.04 LTS. But, you know, at that time, 16.04 was already pretty old. So I was like, you know, you got to kind of keep up with the most current releases if you expect people to use this stuff. But, you know, it is a great software, though, and I'm not sure, like, what's going on with Traction 7. I haven't looked at any of the Traction stuff in a long time, so I'm not really sure what's going on with it, but cool stuff. And let's see. Vinny says, hi from New Zealand, by the way. And, hey, how's it going? Never been to New Zealand. I'd definitely like to check it out, and Australia, too. It's just the other side of the world, but it seems like a really cool place. A lot of cool stuff goes on down there, cool music, and I believe the Fairlight CMI, well, I know New Zealand and Australia are two different places, but I think that came from Australia, and that's a legendary sampler. And I think there's some other cool, like, music technology stuff that was kind of started down that way. But, yeah, so what else? Another thing that I finally got around to doing, speaking of Linux audio, is, like, I basically pretty much just use Reaper now. Like, for everything. I mean, I still like Mixbus, and I still have it, but I haven't used it in a while, and I have Pro Tools too, and I haven't used it at all. But really, I'm just using Reaper pretty much for everything because it runs on every single platform, and it runs really, really well. And it runs incredibly well on Linux as well. I just said well a bunch of times. But what I was trying to say is I actually finally figured out, and I'm sure a lot of people know this already, but I finally figured out how to get other plugins on the Linux native version of Reaper to run, such as LADSPAs and LV2s and things like that, like other native Linux plugins. Because right now it only supports Linux VSTs by default. But what you can do is use Carla, and Carla is basically like a plugin host that runs on all kinds of stuff. And you can actually load it as a VST within Reaper and then load all of your other plugins through there. And supposedly it will work with Windows plugins as well, which I haven't tested yet. I was mostly interested in just getting the LADSPAs and the LV2s working because there's quite a few of those that I really like the CAF Studio plugins and several others. MDA LV2s I think are really good. Or not all of them, but some of them are really good. But there's a lot of plugins now for Linux, you know, and if you want to use like SoftSense and stuff like that, there's probably more for Windows, but there are quite a few for Linux as well. So let's see, Ignacio, Lord Duranzo. Yo, gonna buy some USB mixer and try to sync it with a Behringer UMC404HD with jack. Well, that should be no problem if you just use the ALSA in command in the command prompt. Just start up jack with one of them and then use the ALSA in to sync up the other one, and it should work. I've done that with multiple interfaces, all kinds of different multiple interfaces, and it usually has no issues. Sometimes there's a slight delay between latency between the two, but usually you can go in and fix that pretty easily just by sliding a couple of the tracks over a little bit and then sync them back up. It's not too much of a pain. But, so, yeah. What else is going on, guys? You guys have any other questions about Linux? I know I said this is going to be about UFOs, and I am going to get to that. But we started off on the Linux topics. Excuse me. And, just because you teached us, Master. No. Thanks, Ignacio. But, you know, all I do is I read a lot of stuff, and not even that much. I mean, there's a lot of people on Reddit and stuff that are way more masters of Linux than I am. I just know how to do certain things. And I guess, like, you know, there's a lot of Linux nerds out there, but there's not a whole lot of Linux audio nerds. So in that respect, I guess I am a little bit. There's me and, like, Unfa. And Unfa has got a really great channel, too. If you've never checked him out, you should. It's just UNFA. And he's got a lot of Linux tutorials as well. And I think he's in Poland, but I've never actually... Well, I did speak with him in some chats before, but I should get him on here, and we should do a like a live thing together, because I know he does a lot of live streaming too. But that would be really cool. So anyway, Info, if you see this, yeah. Okay, so let me get on to one of these UFO things. And the first one, what I'm going to do here is show you guys a Chrome window. And how's this going to work? Is this going to work? Can you see this at all? That's not working. Oh, wait. I know why. Okay, there we go. So now you should be seeing my Chrome browser over top of my face there. But what this first thing that I want to talk about here. Now, if you've never heard of this, it's not. They don't even call it a UFO incident because it. I almost feel like they don't say UFO because it is so legit that they don't want people to like be like, oh, well, this is stupid. But I don't know. Usually Wikipedia would say something like Japan Airlines UFO incident or something like that. But this is indeed a UFO incident, and it is by far one of the best ones. Now, see the problem here. How am I going to have my chat open at the same time? Is this going to work? Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. I had to switch windows. Let me just answer this question real quick. Ignacio, live stream of producing a track of mine someday? Probably not. The reason why is I can't focus. I've tried that. I've tried just even recording a video of me producing a track, and it's just not good. Like I just never, because like I can't like talk and kind of narrate and do stuff and like think about all that stuff and try to think and be creative at the same time. It just doesn't work. Like I've tried it before, but like that's why a lot of times when I'm like making tutorials and videos and stuff, like the music in them is like usually pretty silly because I'm just sort of like playing whatever. I'm not really like thinking about it. I have done a live stream for mastering though. I did that when I mastered Turn of the Skroct, that album. I did a live stream of that. And that was good. That came out good. But it was a really easy album to master. I mean, it really didn't have much. I didn't have to do that much, honestly. But anyway, let me get back to this. I'll get back to some Linux stuff here in a second. But I want to talk about this Japan Airlines Flight 1628. Now, I'm just going to read through some of the Wikipedia stuff here so you guys can hear what this is all about. But it says, Japan Airlines 1628 was a UFO incident that occurred on November 17th, 1986, involving a Japanese Boeing 747-200F cargo aircraft. Now, it was a cargo aircraft, so keep that in mind. The aircraft was en route from Paris to Narita International, I don't know what that is, but International Airport near Tokyo. Okay, so it's Japanese. And then with a cargo of wine. I'm going to skip that word. On the Reykjavik to Anchorage section of the flight over eastern Alaska, the crew first witnessed two unidentified objects to their left. These abruptly rose from below and closed in to escort their aircraft. And what that means is it basically followed them. And each of these two rectangular arrays of what appeared to be glowing nozzles or thrusters though their bodies remained obscured by darkness. When closest, the aircraft's cabin was lit up, and the captain could feel the captain could feel the heat on his face from the aircraft. These two craft departed before a third, much larger disc-shaped object started trailing them. Okay, I don't want to just read it word for word. Well, one, because I suck at it, but two, I just want to kind of go over this. Now, it's really interesting that the guy could actually feel the heat on his face. And not only was this witnessed by the captain, it was also witnessed by three crew members. The captain, Terauchi, an ex-fighter pilot with more than 10,000 hours of flight experience. The cockpit's left-hand seat co-pilot, as well as the flight engineer, all witnessed these things. Now, here's the crazy thing, is not only did they all witness these things, this sighting lasted for 50 minutes. Like, almost an hour. These things were following this aircraft. And this pilot, I mean, you can do some more research on this if you want to after, you know, I go over this one. He was so freaked out about this. You know, he testified. He went, you know, basically came on record and said, you know, he had no idea what these things were. And like, and it lasted for so long, and they're, you know, 100% sure what they saw. Like later people said, oh, maybe it could have been, you know, Venus or planets or whatever. But like, the point is the craft rose from below the plane. So it couldn't have been, you know, some, you know, planetary body or something they were looking at. You know, it had to have been something like that. But let me see. We got a message here from Rikamaru. Says, just popping in to say I very much enjoy your channel. Your vids on Audacity help me out a lot and continue to do so. Well, thanks a lot, man. So yeah, this thing is crazy. And like, after he testified, or, you know, went on record about it, he was actually grounded by the Japanese, whatever their, you know, association for pilots or whatever is. And he wasn't allowed to fly for quite some time. He eventually did again. But, you know, it's really, and this guy, he wasn't like a guy that had said anything like that in the past. He was like a very, you know, just button up tie shirt. What is that? Button up tie. What am I talking about? Like straight shooter of a, you know, pilot, and just Japanese business type guy, you know, like he never really had anything like that in his past. And like, and same with any of the other guys. And, you know, it was just a really, really weird thing. And like, the more you learn about this one, the more you're like, what, you know, what exactly happened there? Like, nobody really knows. And this picture is great. I mean, this is what he described them as. And like, that looks like, I mean, it almost looks like LED box lights or something. Like, I mean, I don't know what that could possibly be. You couldn't really, like, there's nothing in nature that you could mistake that for, you know, or like no planets or anything like that. And hey, Vanks, how's it going, man? Or person? I don't know if you're male or female, but yeah, it's really crazy. So, in addition to that, now if you're still skeptical, here is a list of all of the astronauts who have seen UFOs. And this list is actually quite large, and it's pretty darn crazy, some of the stuff that these guys say. And I'm not going to read through all of this, but I'm just going to scroll through here, and you can see that these are all U.S. astronauts who have all seen UFOs or things that they cannot explain, you know, out in space. And there's a lot of them. And like, some of the most compelling ones are one by Gordon Cooper. He has some pretty detailed stories. And even Neil Armstrong saw some stuff, I'm pretty sure. Is he on this list? I think so. Yeah, right here. So Neil Armstrong, yeah, this is crazy. I'm going to have to research this. But according to the NASA astronaut Neil Armstrong, the aliens have a base on the moon and told us in no uncertain terms to get off and stay off the moon. According to an unconfirmed, see, these are unconfirmed reports. But he does have some actual, and I think Buzz Aldrin too, have some actual, you know, stories. Not, I mean, I'm not going to say that that's true, because this just sounds like some kind of made up stuff. Like, there's no real record of him saying that. But he does have, both of them do have records of seeing, or there's things on record of them seeing things in space that are anomalous. Anyway, so lastly, actually, I don't have that much prepared for this, honestly, but still pretty cool. One of the things you should definitely watch if you're interested in this topic is this one called UFOs in Science, Slaying the Dragon. And this is by Stanton Friedman, who's a legendary UFO researcher. And this actually has some really, really good information on it. I'm not going to play it because it's on Amazon Prime, so I really can't do that. But if you guys have Amazon, you might be able to find it on YouTube as well. Definitely check out UFOs in Science, Slaying the Dragon. If anybody have any questions, or, you know, I'll definitely get on my actual experiences with this stuff too, and like what I've seen. But before then, let me try to answer some Linux questions here, because hold on one second. Let me get my camera back. Too many windows open. Where is it? Okay, there we go. So, We have, what's that? iDots dot. Have you ever checked out Pocket Chip? I'm considering buying one for use as a mobile production device, but I wonder if it's worth it. I know it runs Sunvox, but I want to try Milky Tracker on there. No, I have not. I've never tried one of those. I've heard of them, but I've never played with one. I have like a million Raspberry Pis, but I haven't tried. Well, actually, no. What is the Pocket Chip? Am I thinking of, let me Google that. Am I thinking of the right thing? Give me 1 second. Oh, no. I'm not familiar with this at all. That's cool. Let me, I'll put the Chrome window back on here. Oh, wait. Hold on. So, yeah, this is the Pocket Chip. And, no, I've never seen one of these before. That looks insane, gotta say. It looks pretty cool though. You're still not seeing it. Okay, never mind. Somehow I have too many windows open, and like it's really hard to control which one. I'm just gonna turn this off. Which one OBS is actually showing you guys? And what happened to my? Oh my god, I'm totally losing it here. Now I lost the live streaming page too, so I'm gonna have to open that up again. Hopefully this is still working. Anyway, sorry if I'm not responding. I'm trying to find my. Okay, here we go. Oh, this isn't the window I want. Oh yeah, this will work. Okay, so. Pocket Chip was discontinued. I didn't know that. So I'll research it more. No, I've never used one, and but they look really neat. And if you do it, you should make a video about it and send it to me. But let's see. Updated or upgraded or replaced some drum heads on my drum kit. Made a video about that too, so I guess I don't really need to go over it. You guys can just watch that. But so, have you guys seen any UFO stuff? And Vinny, yeah, keep a lookout. I don't know. See, I live in New York now, in New York City, and so it's like I didn't always live here, but I never. It's hard to see stuff in New York City because it's like it's never dark here. First off, like ever. Like there's just lights all over the place, and like even in the middle of the night, you can go outside and it's like totally bright because there's like street lights and signs and cars. Like cars never stop driving. It's just it's a crazy place. So like although there have been some pretty famous UFO sightings in New York City, but I've never experienced any. However, I have experienced a couple, and it's crazy. Like I know it sounds like weird to say I've experienced a couple, but I really have. It's not even just one. It's like probably about 1, 2, at least 3, and there may be one that I'm forgetting about. One of them was completely insane, and I've talked about it on this podcast before. If you go way back in the episodes with Jay Marinelli as the guest, he was actually a witness with me. Although when I talked to him about it on that podcast, it made me doubt my own story a little bit because his memories, even though we both remembered seeing something, seemed to be a little bit different than mine. And that was a little bit disturbing to me. But it's still, the important thing is we both saw something. And I'll first describe, I might as well go over it again. But this was like back when I was kind of a crazier guy, and I used to drink a lot and, party and everything. And me and Jay Marinelli were in a band together called Egoslovia. And we had just played a show, and then we went to this party afterwards, and we were drinking and stuff and kind of, out kind of late. And afterwards, we were heading back home, and we both lived within walking distance of this party. And so we were just like, yeah, we'll just walk home. And like, so we were walking home at the same time. And after we left the party, we were walking down the street, and I look up, and kind of near like the telephone pole, like the power lines, I see what at first I thought was some type of malfunction from the power line or something like that. But what it was a like a glowing ball of light, and it was near the power line, but it wasn't touching it, and it was kind of hovering like down the road. And I look at Jay, and I'm like, now of course you can go back and listen to that episode if you want to, and it may be a little bit different because memories are strange, but and also Jay had slightly different memories than me. But anyway, what I remember is seeing this thing kind of floating, and I look at him and I'm like, do you see that? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, being kind of drunk at the time still, and I was drunk, and like, I'm not going to say that is the most reliable witness, but as far as I know, alcohol doesn't really cause hallucinations like this. Maybe if you're like super insanely drunk, but we weren't that drunk. And it was like the end, we kind of stopped drinking already. But anyway, I was like, let's get it. Like, because I was drunk. And so we started running towards it. And then it started just sort of floating, like it went higher, and then it just like floated down towards the end of the road, and then went up. This is in West Virginia, went up over the mountain, and then kind of zipped off into nothing. And I was like completely freaked out. I was like, what the hell? And so I went back to my apartment, and I started searching UFO sightings, like in the area. And then like I started looking around and like looking for news and stuff like that. And then I came across this thing. Well, it was like later in the day, the next day, where I came across something where like it seemed like people were seeing something similar to that I was seeing. And there was like a news reporter. I can't remember now. It was so long ago, but I thought I found like a news report that kind of verified something in it, but it was in Pennsylvania, like a state away, but it was a very similar thing to what I had experienced. And that was by far the craziest one that I ever experienced, because it was very, very close for one. I mean, it looked like it was about as high as the telephone pole, and like maybe back from it a little bit. And it was really bright. It looked just like a circular ball of light, maybe about like that big. Like it wasn't like huge. It was like probably, bigger than like a basketball, but not as big as what you'd think a spaceship would be or anything like that. But yeah, it was really weird. That was by far the weirdest one that I've ever experienced. And the first one that I ever experienced, though, the first thing that I ever witnessed that was strange in the sky was I was totally sober, and this was years before that when I was living in Florida. And I was living in Florida, in Hollywood, Florida, and I used to smoke cigarettes. And I was taking a smoke break, or not smoke break, but I couldn't smoke in my apartment. So I went outside. Well, it was like this little cottage that I lived in. So I went outside the cottage to smoke a cigarette, and I was standing out there, and I look up, just sort of looking at the stars. It was a very clear night. And I saw what I thought was a shooting star at first, and it was very high up in the distance. And that's why I thought it was a shooting star. And it was going across the sky, and I was like, just thinking to myself, look at that, a shooting star. And it goes, and it just stops. And then I'm like, that's odd, And then it kind of made this circular motion. Like the moon was there, and it was almost like it went around the moon, or it was like near the moon, and like it was just strange. It like made this circular motion, and then it just disappeared. And that was very, very odd. And like, I suppose that could have been like some sort of satellite or something, but its motion was very strange. And I remember like I was alone, like nobody saw it with me, but I was like, like that was the first one I ever saw. And I thought it was very, very weird. And then so after that, I was always kind of looking. And let's see what Ignacio says. There's a place known for UFO enthusiasts here in Chile called, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but Val del Elqui. If you want to check it out someday. I'll check it out on Google. If I'm ever in Chile, I'll check it out in person. But so why don't I play a song? I'm not going to blow all my UFO stories right off the bat here. I have one more pretty good one, actually, and I'll save that. But I'm going to play a song right now. Let me make sure this is on, and take a little break here, and then come back after this song. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to post them. Could be about anything, It doesn't matter. It can be about UFOs, it can be about Linux, it can be about dogs or whatever. I don't know why I have dogs on my mind lately, but I don't have a dog, but kind of want one. So let's see, what am I going to play? I'm going to continue on the Jeremy Powell stuff. Me and Jeremy. Maybe I should just... I also have some of Jeremy's work. And I could play some of that, too. And, okay, I'm going to play... This song is just Fluorescence number 2. Actually, how long is this one? Okay, that'll work. So this is Fluorescence number 2, and this is by me and Jeremy Powell. All right, that was another track by me and Jeremy from the album Fluorescence. And open up my window there, so sorry if it's kind of real bright in the background now, but I just thought of something else that I wanted to talk about. And from time to time on this podcast, I like to talk about movies and entertainment and stuff like that that I've watched and that I recommend or don't recommend. And one of the things you may or may not know about me is I will watch literally anything with Nicolas Cage in it. Like, I think he is like, there's just something about Nicolas Cage, even if it's a terrible movie, which often many of them are, but he can just, there's just something about him that he can make even a terrible movie entertaining, just because his sheer silliness and just weirdness sometimes, I just think is hilarious. And one of those movies is this one called Between Worlds. Now, I just watched this the other night on Netflix. I think it was Netflix or Amazon, one of them. And just by looking at this on Rotten Tomatoes, you can tell, like, there's a lot of people that feel like me. Like, look at the tomato meter. The critics gave it a 32%, but it's got a 90% audience score. This was, like, one of the weirdest movies I've seen in a really long time. And Nicolas Cage, like, he does Nicolas Cage. This is like the most Nicolas Cagey movie ever made, basically. He is just overtly weird throughout the entire film. And I'll give, like, kind of, I don't want to give too many spoilers because you should definitely watch it if you like weird, bad movies, like, that are entertaining. Definitely check out Between Worlds. But it has to do with, he's a trucker, and he meets this girl in a truck stop who's willingly being strangled in the bathroom by some, like, other trucker. And but the reason why she's doing it is basically because when she loses air and passes out, she can travel over to the spirit, like, astral plane. And her daughter was in a coma, so she was trying to communicate with her daughter. And that's why she was having this trucker strangle her in a bathroom. But so anyway, that's not even, like, the weirdest part of it. I mean, it keeps getting weirder, and, like, but Nicolas Cage is just absolutely hilarious in this movie. Like, and so actually everybody in it is just, like, it has this real 90s kind of indie, like, low budget vibe to it. And Nicolas Cage is just, like, drinking and doing a lot of drugs throughout the entire film, and it's very entertaining, so I highly recommend it. Another one that I think I talked about before on another recent podcast was Mandy. And if you haven't seen Mandy yet, also with Nicolas Cage, but it is actually a genuinely great movie. Like, it is, like, I mean, it's really brutally violent horror film, but it was done by the same director who did the film Beyond the Black Rainbow, which is an excellent film as well. So if you haven't seen Mandy yet, definitely check it out as well. I mean, it actually is a genuinely good movie. It's not even just good because it's bad. It's like an actual good movie. But Between Worlds is definitely entertaining, though. So the other thing, and some of you may not want to listen now, because I'm going to be talking about Avengers Endgame. And if you haven't seen it yet, well, there's going to be spoilers. So if you don't care, then continue to watch, please. But yeah, it is, like, the hugest movie, basically, of all time already. It's, like, as far as, like, making money. But, so I was a comic book collector when I was a kid, and I loved all that stuff. I loved Spider-Man especially, and was a big X-Men fan. And it's kind of a shame that X-Men was never really connected to the Marvel universe and the films, but I think it's going to be soon. But I'm not real knowledgeable on all that stuff. But anyway, overall, Endgame was entertaining, but it was not as good as a lot of their other movies. And the reason why is because there's some really lazy writing in Endgame. Like, it really has some serious plot holes that just, I mean, they had to know, like, the people making the movie had to know that they're in there. And I know other people have talked about this on YouTube, but one of the main ones, and here comes a gigantic spoiler, so if you want to stop watching now, you can. But the main one is Captain America at the end of the film travels back in time to basically put all of the Infinity Stones back in their correct place. And he decides to stay back in the 1940s or 1950s. And he basically gets married and has a family to Agent Carter. And then in the end of the film, you know, right after he jets back in time, he shows up as an old man sitting on this bench, right, basically, you know, 10 feet away from where they just sent him back in time. Now, there's so many reasons why this doesn't make any sense. The first reason why, in the actual film itself, they set up the rules for time travel within Infinity Wars, or not Infinity War, yeah, Endgame rather. They set up, and the rule is that if you travel back in time, you're not going to change the present that you left from, because you'll create an alternate timeline, and then that will be, you know, different, but it's not going to affect where you left from because it's an alternate timeline. So, if Captain America just traveled back in time and decided to stay in the 1940s, there's absolutely no way old man Captain America could be sitting 10 feet away from them at the bench, because he created an alternate timeline where he would be sitting in that timeline, and the people, you know, everybody else who was waiting for him there, like, they wouldn't, I mean, he just wouldn't be there. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And the other thing, if, you know, if you want to say, okay, well, maybe because he's originally from that time, it didn't create an alternate timeline, and he, you know, is still in the same timeline. So if that's the case, then the Captain America who went back in time would have never existed there, because he was already back there and he stayed there, and there's no way it could have, you know, this would have changed the whole outcome of the Avengers. Captain America never would have been frozen. He never would have, you know, woken up in the future. And like, I mean, it had so many problems. Like, there's no matter which way you know, if you're like, well, what if this, what if that, no matter how you do it, none of it makes sense. And I just really think that, I don't know. They had to know it, because they're the ones who set up the rules in the film itself. So I don't know, but that's my rant on Endgame. I also didn't really care for, I mean, I knew it was, well, I didn't really know it was going to happen, but I guess a lot of people knew it was going to happen, but I didn't really care for Iron Man dying. That really, I think they could have done it some other way. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he died a hero and all that. It didn't bother me as much. It was definitely an emotional scene and everything, but like, it didn't bother me as much as the whole Captain America thing. But I didn't really like it. But I mean, overall, the movie was entertaining. Not as good as Infinity Wars, but it was still a pretty good movie. But yeah, the whole I mean, I don't know. I've watched other people try to explain it, and no way you try to explain Captain America going back and staying back in that time, you know, the 1940s, until he's an old man in the present. No way you slice it makes sense. So, I don't know. It was a big hole. Big plot hole. So, have you guys seen the movies that you want to recommend to me or anything like that? What else did I watch? I know I've watched a lot of things. I watched the Shockingly Evil, what is it called? Shockingly Evil, Extremely Wicked and Vile. Excuse me, something like that. That Zac Efron, Ted Bundy movie. And I actually really liked it. I thought it was really good. I know a lot of people were kind of disappointed in it because it didn't really deal much with him as a serial killer. What it was, and this is why I actually really like the film, because the film was made in such a way where you see it through his girlfriend's eyes, Liz or Lily or whatever her name was, and she never believed, or she had a really hard time believing that he was this monster, and so she stayed in denial for years and years and years, and so you kind of see the film through her eyes, or you see the story through her eyes and him through her eyes. Like, he keeps saying, "Oh, I'm gonna beat this. You know, it's all a big mistake," and blah blah blah. Of course, all of that was completely full of shit, and the guy was completely insane, evil bastard. But it, you know, it was really well acted. Lily Collins, Phil Collins' daughter, played his girlfriend, and she was great. I really didn't even know that she was an actress, or that, you know, Phil Collins had a daughter. Actually, I really didn't realize that. I mean, I love him as a drummer, and I know his son is playing drums now too, and is also a very good drummer. But apparently he has a very talented family. But Zac Efron was amazing as Ted Bundy. Looked eerily like him. He looked so much like him, it was actually kind of scary. And a lot of people said that, like, like it was actually kind of unnerving, especially when he was like in jail and had the beard. It was just weird. Like, I don't know. And like recently I watched that there was the Ted Bundy documentary on Netflix as well, and the Bundy tapes, and that was actually made by the same director who directed this film, but two totally different takes. That, you know, the documentary kind of, you know, follows the whole story, you know, of what he actually did and the crimes and all that stuff, and it's completely disturbing and it's gross. But this movie was more like how he affected the people around him who, you know, knew him, you know, which was very interesting. Although it didn't deal much, it probably could have dealt a little more with his family, but maybe they were a little too private to talk about that, or to really base any information on that. But interesting movie, definitely worth the watch. But I think I watched Between Worlds right after that, and I actually think I like Between Worlds a little bit better though. I was not expecting Between Worlds to be anything, and I actually ended up really liking it. But UFO story number 3. So this one is pretty weird. And actually I just remembered a number 4, and it's right around the same time as number 3. And so I might as well talk about both of these. So from 2000 and what was it? 2008 to 2010 or 9, or I don't know, 2000, maybe no, it was 2007 to 2009. I was living in Clearwater, Florida. Now, Clearwater, Florida, as some of you may know, is a little bit notorious for being the headquarters of the Church of Scientology. And that's just an interesting side note to all of this stuff. And I've talked a little bit about that on here before. But in like my interactions with Scientology and all of that stuff. But one of the things, though, about Clearwater is, I don't know if it's because of that or what, you know, but Clearwater just has a really, it's a hard to place vibe to it. It's a very weird place. And I'm sure that has something to do with it, but it's not even just like that they're there, you know, Scientology is there and they have this giant, you know, they basically own the entire downtown, but it just has a weird feeling. Like you go outside in Clearwater, Florida in the middle of the night, and it's beautiful, and like, you know, a lot of times there'll be nobody around. Like it's like even though a lot of people live there, but like, for example, I used to live, you know, on this street, and I lived in a really nice house. I had a roommate, and when I would go outside, you know, at night to wander around, you know, or to go ride my bike or something, it was always like strangely empty, you know, like just nobody around. You know, every now and then you'd see some cars going by, but just not a lot of people. And I always found that to be very strange. And there was just this kind of energy in the air, like almost like this electricity or something. But anyway, so one night I was outside, and I was coming home from somewhere, and I think I had just parked my car, and I was going home, and I looked across from where I was parking the car, and there's there's this road that went down behind into this wooded area. And from back in that wooded area, I was seeing what looked like kind of like floodlights, like pointing out of the back, like from behind those trees, and like kind of spreading out into the air. And like, it was really weird. I was standing there looking at it for quite some time, and I went inside, and I got my roommate, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, check this out." I'm like, "Look at those weird lights coming from out there." And he came out and looked at it, and what was strange with him is I thought his reaction to them was very odd. Like, it was almost like he knew what they were, but he didn't want to tell me, which I thought was very strange. And I know that sounds paranoid, but that is like the vibe that I got. Like, it was really weird, but like, cause I didn't really know him that well. And he actually was a Scientologist too. I mean, he was a really nice guy. I mean, I'm not saying that anything because of anything, like that he was a Scientologist that had to do with anything, but he was a really nice guy. And, but it was really weird. And it was like hard to describe like what it was. Like, I just wasn't sure. And there was nothing back there as far as I knew. So, you know, it was really late and I was like honestly, I was a little bit afraid. I wasn't going to go back there, you know, and look because it was like back in the woods. So I was like, well, tomorrow I'll go over there and check it out, you know, because there was a road that went back in there. And so the next day, I got in my car and I drove down that road and went back there and I didn't see anything. Like, there was just nothing back there. It was like, I mean, there was a house back there, but I didn't see anything that could have been causing these kind of lights. And so I was like, whatever. So I just sort of forgot about it. And then this is, okay, so this kind of connects to the other one. So I used to work it was actually a recording studio called Total Tape Services. And so I was driving to work one day and there was this bridge in Clearwater that kind of, I can't remember the name of the bridge, but it was pretty long. And so I was driving across this bridge early in the morning. It was probably like 9 a.m. Or I guess it's not that early, but fairly early in the morning. And there's some, morning traffic heading over the bridge with me. And I'm driving, I'm looking off, kind of over to the left of the bridge down by the bank of the land and the water. And I see it looked like three circular balls of light. And it was daylight, but they were like kind of metallic glowing. One was red, one was green, and one was yellow. And they were kind of going up in this like up and down kind of pattern, going down to where the riverbank was or whatever water that was, and then back up into the sky, and then back down, and like all three of them just kind of in a row, following each other. And I'm looking at it, and I swear everybody else on the bridge noticed them too, because everybody slowed down, and like everybody's kind of looking over, and it was really weird. And like they just kind of went down, and I just kept seeing them go down, and they just went all the way down to where I couldn't see them anymore. And so I got to work, and I told my boss about it, and she was like, that's weird, but didn't really say much else about it. And so that night, when I went home, again, I saw the lights across the street from where I was living, again, shining out from that wooded area, like where it looked like a bunch of spotlights shining out from back there. And it was really strange. That time I didn't go get my roommate. I just sort of looked at him and I was like, there they are again, and like, so I just, I don't know what it was. I never got an answer. I don't know. It was weird. It was really weird. And I know when I first moved to Clearwater, I remember sitting downtown at a stoplight, and one of the doors on one of the buildings opened up, and this is unrelated, but has to do with Scientology though. But like this whole row of people in white, kind of like navy looking suits all walked out of one building in a long line. And there was probably like 50 of them, and all crossed the street at the same time, and then all walked into another building. And like, I was like, what? And like, that was before I really realized that like Scientology pretty much owned the entire downtown, which they do, and they still do. And, but yeah, it was really quite a scene. Like I didn't know what was going on. And so the whole time that I lived there was a bit strange. It was just, there was some weird stuff going on. And I swear it really seemed like my roommate knew what those lights were, but he wasn't telling me. And I guess it's possible. It also could be possible that I was just paranoid. And like, I was a little bit freaked out about all the Scientology, and like, not that they never did anything. Like, nobody ever tried to like, and I lived there for a couple of years too. And I knew like where I worked was full of Scientologists. None of them ever tried to like, they were never like trying to get me to like do anything. Like, none of them ever did. They never tried to convince me of anything or try to get me to go to any other stuff or any of that stuff. But but I was still kind of freaked out by it, honestly. And but maybe that had something to do with my paranoia about my roommate, which is possible. But he was a nice guy. But yeah, that was weird. Florida in general, it just has a weird vibe. Everybody says that. It's not like I'm the only person who says that. Like everybody who goes to Florida or has been to Florida or lived there, it's pretty much understood that it's just a weird place. And it's not just Clearwater. But Clearwater's beautiful, though. I mean, other than that, well, and in a way, it's kind of, it makes it almost more interesting in a way because it is such a weird place. But like, it's a beautiful city. I mean, it's definitely clean and really nice beach and stuff like that. But so yeah, those are my UFO stories, personal experiences with that stuff. But any of you guys have anything like that? You experience anything like that? Or if you have any other questions, Linux questions, I'm going to wrap this up here pretty soon because I don't even know how long I've been talking yet. Excuse me. And of course, I did one of these where I didn't make a list of topics or anything before I started this. Well, except for the UFO stuff. I was just like, I'll just pull up a couple links and we'll look at that, you know. But anyway, got a couple of ideas of things to be working on here pretty soon. Music news. I've been playing again with these guys, some friends of mine here in Brooklyn. One is a guy named Yannick. He used to play, well, he still plays, but I think they're kind of on hiatus. This band called Stereo Bird. And another one is the bassist from this band Doliant that I was playing in for a little while. Doliant had the current singer of the Dead Kennedys, Skip. And but we're not playing with him anymore. But now it's me and William, who played in Doliant, and Yannick, who played in Stereo Bird. And we're doing some Demonic Sweaters stuff, and we're also doing some originals, like some stuff that we thought of with jams. And hopefully we'll be getting a gig. Well, we have a gig, but we don't know for sure if we're going to do it or not because it may be too soon. It's taken a little while just to, sync up and get everything ready because, like, we haven't been able to practice every single week because everybody's pretty busy. But hopefully that'll come together soon. And then also Caitlin Frame, who I posted a video with a couple of weeks ago. Me and her started playing again too, and I'm really excited about that. And she's a great musician. She's on tour right now with the band The Drums. So once she gets back from that, then we're going to get back to work on working on some music. So that'll be a lot of fun. So anyway, since it looks like not too many questions coming in today, I'm going to wrap it up. But if you guys have any suggestions and guest suggestions, I really want to get some guests on here. I've asked a few people. I haven't had, I know I'm not really focusing on it like I used to, like as far as getting the guests. But I've been failing, honestly, about getting guests. I mean, I still want to get my mom on here, and she said she would, but I was going to do that Sunday, but that didn't work out, or I was too tired or something. But but yeah, I asked a few people, and I'm just not, I'm striking out on the guests. I don't know what my deal is. Maybe I'm not asking the right people, or I'm not following up enough. But if any of you guys want to come on, let me know. But anyway, thanks for watching again. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have any suggestions of videos or questions or anything like that, feel free to let me know. And also, I know one other thing that I wanted to talk about, though, before I get out of here. What do you guys think about... See, I have Patreon, but I only have 2 patrons. Like, I'm not good at getting patrons. And I don't know if maybe I just shouldn't even have it. Because maybe, like, one of the things I'm starting to think is, like, I am always, like, pushing too many links. Like, I have, like, Anthill Recordings, which is, like, the record label. And then I have Patreon, and then I have my website, and then I have all this crap. So, like, maybe it's just too much stuff. And I'd like to get you guys' opinion on that, if you don't mind. But what I'm thinking on doing is just getting rid of Patreon altogether, and then just kind of using Anthill Recordings as the main thing. Because, I mean, honestly, like, the only thing I can really offer on Patreon is either shout outs in these videos or free downloads from Anthill Recordings. But if you subscribe to Anthill Recordings, then you'll get the free downloads anyways. So I might as well just tell people to go there, is what I'm starting to think. But the problem with that is, you know, anytime you try or you decide to change something, especially in YouTube land, and you already pitched it in older videos, like this has happened to me so many times when I changed like web addresses, like when I did Linux Music Studio for a while. Like I have like a whole ton of music video or a whole ton of YouTube videos that talk about linuxmusicstudio.com, and I still have that URL, but I don't do anything with it. It's actually for sale. But you know, part of the problem is you have to go back in through all these videos and change all your links, and it just becomes this really, really huge pain in the butt because, well, especially I have like 500 videos. Like I have a lot of videos, and so I guess I don't know. Maybe the answer to that could be if I just start trying to get everybody to go to Anthill Recordings instead of Patreon, and leave the Patreon there, but maybe I could put something on there that kind of, you know, lets people know that most of the stuff happens at anthillrecordings.bandcamp.com. I don't know. What do you guys think? If you have any opinions on that, you can either put them in the chat, or if I log off, you can comment about it. But that would be cool. Help me out there. And if you guys can support in any way, that always helps me out too. So anyway, thanks for watching again, everybody. And I know this was a very short notice, or no notice at all. And just sort of do it sometimes like that. So next time I'll try to be a little more prepared and come up with something a little bit better. But anyway, thanks for watching again. See you guys real soon.